Hello, and welcome to The Budget Mouse, a podcast that will help you plan an incredible Walt Disney World vacation, even if you're on a shoestring budget. I'm Leah Althizer, the creator of the websites The Budget Mouse and The Frugal South. I visit Disney World many times each year and have tons of tricks for doing Disney on the cheap. I want you to have the incredible vacation you deserve, so I'm sharing all of my tricks with you on my sites and here in the podcast. This week, we're sharing tips and hacks for Disney World transportation, so let's dive in. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to episode 86. Figuring out how to get from point A to B at Disney World is sometimes the hardest part of planning a trip. There are buses, boats, monorails, gondolas, minivans, Ubers, and sometimes even walking to get you around on Walt Disney World property. So in this episode, we're going to give you some general guidelines plus some insider tips and advice on how to get around during your Walt Disney World vacation. And I have to say, this applies only to when you're staying on property at a Disney World hotel. Staying off property has its own set of transportation challenges, but what we're saying today just applies to when you're staying at a Disney World owned hotel. I'm joined today by a very special guest who is going to take on an important role here on the podcast that we are rebirthing here. And that is Dave Rich, who is not only a Disney aficionado, Disney history buff, trivia expert. He also happens to be my brother-in-law. So Dave, I'm so happy to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yay.
I always enjoy taking advantage of some well-earned nepotism.
Yay, nepotism for the win.
Yeah, I'll take it.
So Dave has been doing a Disney podcast for, I don't know, year, 2 years now.
Yeah, a while.
With friends.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was called the Add More Mouse podcast.
Yes. And as we both know, keeping a podcast going consistently is such a huge challenge. So we are combining forces. We're hoping the momentum is going to keep our butts doing this together here as we move forward. So it's a lot easier when you have accountability with someone.
I think so. That is very true. And I think oftentimes what my other show lacked was I do not go to the parks all the time. I go, if I'm lucky, every couple years. And so, and I felt like, a lot of people who look for shows, they want either the history or they want to talk about Disney stuff, or they want to hear about goings on at the parks, or they want tips on what to do at the parks. And I feel like, we are going to combine into just the most amazing Voltron.
Oh my
if you
God,
ever
I
watch
love
Voltron. We're like two of the lions coming together in Voltron. And it's gonna be great. So we're gonna focus on Disney, all the stuff that you normally do, tips and tricks on how to navigate what seems to be an increasingly complicated process of planning a Disney vacation. I was just there last week, and oh my gosh, even for somebody who I feel like I'm fairly in the know about what's happening there, and I was still very overwhelmed at certain points. And then I think it's also going to allow us to continue to dig into some of the weirder stuff or some of the funnier stuff that's on Disney Plus or on YouTube or books or whatever, that will help someone who is maybe new to Disney enjoy the parks a little bit more, maybe knowing a little bit of the history or the background.
I love it. I think it's a great way to join forces. And yes, Disney is increasingly confusing and mind-boggling. So this week we're going to tackle the very confusing topic of Disney World transportation. Now, I've done a separate show that is about getting to and from Walt Disney World from the airport. So we're not talking about that. We're just talking about when you're on Disney property, how to get around, which is, I think most people underestimate how difficult it is to wrap your mind around Disney World transportation, because we're talking buses, ferries, boats, monorail, Skyliner, and then sometimes those aren't practical. So you have to turn to paid sources. So the first thing that I want to say that many people probably don't know, because I get asked this a lot, is that Disney World transportation that I just mentioned are free to anyone. You don't have to have a park ticket, and you don't have to be staying at a Disney World resort to use all of those forms of transportation. So this is actually different than Disneyland, I didn't know this before I went to Disneyland, but you have to have a park ticket in order to ride the monorail at Disneyland. So I think that's where people get confused and they think maybe you need a park ticket to be able to use the monorail or to be able to go on the Skyliner or use the boats or whatever. But actually, you don't have to be staying at Disney World Resort and you don't have to have a park ticket to use any of the transportation. So I'm going to give an example here of this is kind of like hacks that maybe people didn't think about ways to take advantage of the free Disney World transportation to kind of improve the quality of your trip. So here's an example, which I have done. If you're at Epcot and you are so overwhelmed and hot and tired and you just want to put your feet up, you can go out the back entrance to Epcot, which is at the International Gateway. That's between the UK and the France Pavilion. You can hop on the Skyliner stop, which is right there, and take a short trip over to Disney's Riviera Resort, which is a total different scene. It is very chill. It is very relaxed. You can plop yourself down on a comfortable cushioned chair there at the lounge. You can put your feet up, you can take a drink and have a breather from the parks. You don't have to be staying at Disney's Riviera Resort with the price tag associated with it in order to take advantage of just the grounds. The only thing is you can't go in the pool, but you can cruise around the grounds and take advantage of that. Another example, this is a little bit embarrassing that I've done, is taking the monorail from Magic Kingdom when I had a little one in tow. I think she's probably 2. Red one was probably 2. Taking the monorail from Magic Kingdom to the Contemporary Resort, and they're on the second and third floor of the Contemporary, so you'd have to go down a floor from the monorail stop. There is a conference center and tons of comfortable furniture, couches, chairs, and everything scattered about those floors. It's usually empty because even if there is a conference there people are in sessions and stuff. And I have actually laid down on those couches and taken a nap while my kid was napping in her stroller in the middle of the day, like a hobo drifter at Disney World, like stretched out. I do not care. I napped on the couches of the Contemporary.
I've seen, I mean, at my last trip there, I saw people sleeping just on park benches, at the bars. Well, not really at the bars, but like in couches. It's a fairly common thing. And also, like, if you're out in the heat for 8 to 9 hours, like, sometimes you just fall asleep. It's all right.
You could sleep in the Hall of Presidents or you could sleep on a couch at the Contemporary. I mean, I'm not judging anyone either way.
Who would sleep in the Hall of Presidents? How dare you?
So anyway, just an example of that, like, you don't have to be staying at a Disney resort. You don't have to be staying in the Contemporary to sleep like a hobo on the couches there, or use Disney transportation to get away from the parks for a minute to get a break in the afternoon because you are that tired that you could probably just fall asleep at the drop of a hat. So I am going to reference some things from this recent trip, Dave. I too was at Disney World last week, the week before, with Dave and family there, and some creative uses of Disney transportation are like sometimes where it came in handy. So my overall guidelines for when you're going on a Disney trip is just to learn the transportation options at your particular resort inside and out, because they are really unique. Every resort has its own combo of transportation options. Overall, you're going to find bus transportation at the value and the moderate resorts. And then you're going to find some other option at deluxe resorts. That's kind of the rule, is that you may have buses, but you also have some kind of other option in addition to buses at deluxe resorts. But there are exceptions to this. So one is where you just stayed, is Art of Animation and Pop Century have a Skyliner stop. And if you don't know what Skyliner is, it's like a gondola system that can transport you around Walt Disney World. So Skyliner stop that will take you to Hollywood Studios. You do have to change the line one time, or to Epcot, though in my opinion it's not very practical Skyliner ride from Art of Animation to Epcot because of how long it takes, and that you have to switch lines one time in addition to that. So I would opt to bus to Epcot from Art of Animation Pop Century. But what did you think of the Skyliner taking it to Hollywood Studios from Art of Animation?
I loved it. This was the first time I'd stayed at Art of Animation before pre-Skyliner. And I thought it was great. I mean, honestly, so I do have a question for you. So on the morning that we wanted to rope drop Hollywood Studios, we got up, we walked down to the Skyliner, and there was a pretty crazy looking line for the Skyliner. Like, it was really long. And so we kind of it made the snap decision to just call in a Lyft ride to get
Awesome.
over there. And it was, I mean, it was only $15 and it took us like 10 minutes to get there. But family friends of ours waited in the line and they said it actually
It
went
does go
really fast. After we paid for the Lyft ride, I was kind of like, oh, maybe we should have just, it wasn't that expensive for the Lyft ride. But if somebody comes down and they see that line that like is pretty daunting looking, like it went a ways back, would you advise people to, if they're in a hurry, should they just skip the line and go for a paid option, or can they kind of rest easy knowing
Well,
that
it
it's
does
a
go
really quick
quickly
line?
unless there's a problem, which sometimes there is a problem with the Skyliner, right?
Well, yes.
So it just depends on how important those plans are to you, right? So it's the same thing as everything at Disney World. There's no guarantees that something's not going to break down. So I would just say that, like, if it is going to ruin your vacation, if you get held up on the Skyliner, then I would say take the lift. If you have a little more time, you're more flexible. If you're like, if the worst case scenario happens, the Skyliner gets held up and I'm delayed by 30 minutes, is it going to ruin my vacation? No, then just wait for the Skyliner. It does, as a rule, move quickly. Like, how were they there quite a while after you? Like, after you arrived, how long did it take for them to arrive? Do you know?
Yeah, they were after us, but I think they got through the line
Okay.
in about
Yeah.
20 minutes, it
That
seemed
sounds
like.
right to me.
And we, obviously the earlier you get there, the better shot you'll have at being closer in line. But I will say, just overall, like the Skyliner rules, it's I'm not afraid of heights usually, but like
Yeah.
it's almost like a ride in and of itself because you are floating over water and you are seeing things from up top. You're going over parking
Yeah.
lots. It's
As
really
a
cool.
rule, I love it, and
I love it.
leave extra time when riding the Skyliner. And I think that is just what you have to factor into your plans, is that if you're going at the peak time, particularly to Hollywood Studios is the most popular park right now. So leave extra time when going to Hollywood Studios. And I wonder if they hit another line when they had to transfer at Caribbean Beach. So if you're taking the Skyliner from Art of Animation to Hollywood Studios, you have to get off, get back in line, and transfer to the Hollywood Studios line there at Caribbean Beach. So that could be really discouraging too. If like you get through the line, you're like, cool, we're in the we're in the clear, and then and there's another line that you have to wait it again to get on the Skyliner to go to Hollywood Studios. That could be somewhat deflating. So you just have to plan for that.
Yes, I will say at night and also in the afternoon when we used it, there was
Yeah.
absolutely no line and it was super easy. Like we left the park around 8:30, and even though there were a lot of people making a park
Yeah.
exit, it was
Yeah. The
super
only
simple
time
to
it
get
gets
on
backed
the
up is in the
Skyliner.
morning when everyone's trying to get there at the same time. But people leave gradually throughout the day. So
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, the only other time where you'll see a line is when the fireworks end at Epcot. Okay, so I have a tip for that. Like, we're talking about the nighttime show at Epcot, which is harmonious right now, but it will change in the future. It really doesn't matter what I know, right? Well,
Aw.
that's for a topic for another show. It doesn't really matter where you watch the nighttime entertainment from at Epcot. And so if you're staying at a Skyliner resort, try to watch it as close as you can to the international gateway there. Like, so I like to watch it from like in between Canada and UK. And then I just like start walking as soon as it's over, or like as it's wrapping up, start walking to the international gateway. And then you'll be one of the first people on the Skyliner and you can get back to your resort faster. So when I stayed at Riviera and wanted to see the nighttime show at Epcot, that's what we did. We just were sure to watch it right from there. So it could be not get stuck in a line getting back on the Skyliner. So the other kind of exceptions to the transportation rules would be Caribbean Beach, which does have the Skyliner to both Epcot and Hollywood Studios. And that makes it, to me, a really appealing moderate resort because of the increased transportation options. So like I'm staying there next month on a girls trip. We're going to Epcot and I'm going to request a room at Caribbean Beach that is close to the Epcot Skyliner stop, because some of the rooms at Caribbean Beach are close to the Hollywood Studios Skyliner stop and some are close to the Epcot Skyliner stop. So just kind of to plan accordingly at that resort to be close to the transportation is a really good thing. You can request a room close to that particular form of transportation you want to use. So other exceptions are Port Orleans resorts, Riverside and French Quarter have boats to Disney Springs, which can be really nice if you want to have an afternoon or evening at Disney Springs that you get to take a leisurely boat ride over instead of taking a bus. And then Animal Kingdom Lodge is another exception because it's a deluxe resort that has only buses to everywhere. But like I have this secret dream that one day
Yeah.
they will pave a walking path to Animal Kingdom Park. Wouldn't that be so cool?
Yeah, it's kind of
I
crazy
know, I
that
agree.
it
Why?
doesn't
It's
connect to
so
any.
close.
I, I don't know. And I will say that like our family had for the first few trips always stayed at Animal Kingdom, and then we usually transfer like halfway through our vacation to a
Yeah.
slightly less expensive hotel. And so I was very used to using the bus system, and I gotta say, like we stayed at the Polynesian this most recent time, and staying at a monorail resort was
That's so nice.
unbelievably convenient. Um, and when you're at, I mean, I love Animal Kingdom Lodge. I think I mean, it's an amazing hotel. I'm sure everybody you can go on YouTube and watch videos of it. Like seeing animals outside your window, if you have a Savannah view room, is amazing. But I will say, having stayed at different hotels this time that had transportation built in other than the
Yeah.
buses
It's
was
really,
kind of a
really
game
nice.
changer. It is because even though the buses run all day, uh, your schedule is going to be dependent on when one shows up, and you just kind of have to walk down to the stop and wait. And if there's a line, there's not necessarily you're not going to get on that first bus, and it's not it makes it a little more stressful if you're trying to rope drop a park or if you have fast passes. Oh, sorry,
Oh, I
not even
still call
called
them
fast
buses.
passes anymore. If you have lightning, if you have early plans, the bus can really get in your way. And then you've got to deal with traffic and all kinds of other things. And obviously, if you're staying at Animal Kingdom, you don't really have a choice, but something to consider when you're booking a hotel
Totally.
stay for
So
sure.
just in closing about this, the transportation options vary at the resort. So like basically once you pick the resort, then your job is to learn the transportation options inside and out. Like how do I get to every park? And sometimes there's multiple ways, which is the best way, right? What's the fastest way to get to, for example, Epcot from the Polynesian. So like I was texting with my sister, Dave's lovely wife, the morning where they're trying to go to Epcot. And she's like, uh-oh, how do I get to Epcot from the Polynesian? I'm not talking bad about her on the show. I'm just saying, like, you go, oh
No,
shoot, how
I
do
wouldn't know
I?
that
And
either.
because she knew that I had told her that you walk to the transportation and ticket center to get the monorail to Epcot from the Polynesian, but then she was like, oh wait, how do I actually do that? And so we like had to look at the map and plan, like, oh, there's the path, because it's not that obvious, really. Plan the walking path from their building at the Polynesian to get to the transportation and ticket center to get the monorail to Epcot, because there's no buses actually from the Polynesian to Epcot. The only option is the monorail. And if you went to the monorail stop at the Polynesian, you'd have to take the monorail all the way around past the Grand Floridian and Magic Kingdom and Contemporary to get to the TTC, adding an extra like 20 minutes to your transportation in the morning.
Which I did twice
Or
during my
you could just
stay.
walk over
I
to get on it.
Yeah, two different times I got on the wrong. That's the other thing is like there's a way you can actually
Yes.
get on the wrong monorail, which is doing a separate loop. And the good thing is that you will get where you need to go for the most part. But
Confessions.
yeah, you should all. When in doubt, ask a person in a uniform which one you should get on, because they will
That's
tell
funny.
you.
Okay, so next, sometimes Disney transportation like just doesn't make sense. So, prime example of this is when you want to eat. I mean, some of the best restaurants are at the other resorts, and you want to go to a different resort to eat dinner. And you're like, whoa, how do I get to said resort? And when you do Disney transportation, it involves like two bus lines, like a transfer of a bus, and it just doesn't seem practical at that point. And so you have other options to get around that includes Uber, Lyft, and minivans. So I want to address those. My opinion is like, don't waste hours of your vacation to get a free bus ride when Ubers are so cheap. Like to get anywhere, you gave an example, like $15, $13. I mean, generally to get anywhere within Walt Disney World, it's like $8 to $15. I mean, 15 would be the farthest reaches or at peak times because they do charge more for peak times. like you already paid so much for your vacation. Don't spend an hour and a half on a bus or waiting for a bus when you could Uber somewhere in 10 minutes for an extra, what, $15. So that's just my opinion on that. There are Ubers with car seats. So I had to show my sister Kim, like on the Uber screen, when you pull up Uber, you have to scroll way to the bottom of your options there, and you will see Uber with a car seat. So the car seat laws in Florida are a good thing to mention while we're talking about transportation. So 5 and under needs some kind of car seat in Florida. And that is different than other states. Like I think in North Carolina, it's 7 and under. So I mean, she was able to ride without a car seat in Florida when she was 6, whereas in North Carolina, she couldn't have, and I was fine with it because people are safe generally driving other people around. But you can see the options that it's extra $5 for a car seat. And I do have a post on using Uber and Lyft at Walt Disney World, all of the like basics of how it works and how to use it if you've never done it before. And Dave, I'm going to ask you to put that in the show notes if you don't mind. It's over on the Frugal South. The other option would be minivans. So I have personally never taken a minivan because I just can't. It's so painful, the price. I looked at taking one. We were meeting Dave's family at the Polynesian on our last day, and it was a $13 ride from Animal Kingdom Lodge to the Polynesian on Uber, and it was $50 with a minivan. And I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. This is why people, though, sometimes choose to use a minivan. So it holds up to 6 people and 2 car seats. So getting an Uber, you can only request 1 car seat. So if you're traveling with 2 kids, you're kind of limited. You'd have to get 2 Ubers, split your party up. Or if your party is more than 4 people, I mean, 4 people is crammed in an Uber. So if you have more than 4 people, you have to get 2 Ubers anyway. And at that point, it might make sense to all pile into the minivan and share the cost. There's also cute TVs in the minivan. Well, the minivans are really cute anyway. They're red with white polka dots. And there's cast members driving the minivans. So those are the reasons why people might sometimes choose to use the minivan. And it's just part of like the Disney experience. You might splurge for a minivan. I can't bring myself to do it. I'm just too cheap. Anything you want to add about, you guys, did you Uber? Oh yeah, you just said you Ubered to the parks in the morning, which I've done many times when I'm running late.
We used Lyft, which same basic thing. We used it twice, and one was in the morning, one was at night to get to a dinner. And I have to say, like, very easy, because I know where I live in Ohio, sometimes you book a ride and it's like, I've actually booked a ride and then I get an alert 5 minutes later that says, sorry, there's no one around to actually pick you up. Yeah. And it's like, well, what's this app supposed to be doing then? But I'll say plenty of cars in the area. And I struck up a conversation with, I'm that kind of guy who wants to talk to my Lyft drivers, and doesn't sound like the typical like Lyft or Uber price really surges until like park closing. And so if you're using one in the afternoon or even in the morning, it did not seem like it was a huge issue. I think when parks are closing and it's harder to get rides, the price will go up, but easy to get. And honestly, like, the relief of not having the stress of like making your dinner reservation on time, it was worth it the few times we used it.
I use it a lot. The last thing I want to address is using just Disney transportation, like taking advantage of it when you're doing a split stay. So that means when you're staying at more than one resort at Disney World. So like how to switch resorts using Disney transportation. So this is the basic gist of it. It's like you're checking out of one resort in the morning. Most people go to the parks. So what you would do is pack up all your stuff, call down to the front desk or to the bell services desk and say, hey, we're switching resorts today. And they will usually come up to your room, tag your luggage for you, fill out information on the tag about what resort you're going to, how many bags you have. And then I always tip $1 or $2 per bag for anyone that touches my bag. And then they will tell you that they're going to switch the bags for you and that you likely won't see them. To this time, most recently, it was between 3 and 6 p.m. So in the past it was earlier, but they're having staffing issues. So everything's taking a little longer. And that they're going to move your bags for you. Then you use the transportation at that resort to get to the parks, right? So let's say I'm going to do what you guys did, which is you're at the Polynesian, you go to Magic Kingdom, you spend your day at Magic Kingdom, however long you want to stay. Then you guys were switching to Art of Animation. You then take the bus from Magic Kingdom direct to Art of Animation. You're there magically at your new resort. Your bags will theoretically arrive later and you can check into your room, hopefully on time. I know you guys got delayed checking into your room.
Yeah, we get delayed, but it happens. It's not nothing to complain about, really. That's a good problem to have when your hotel room isn't quite ready when you show up.
Well, these are all first world problems that we're having here talking about Disney World.
Yes.
How did you get your bags? How was getting your bags? Did that go okay?
That was great. So just in case anybody out there has never done this before, you basically, we were leaving from the Polynesian after a few days. You just pack up all your stuff. Bell guy or lady shows up to your room, takes your stuff, just like they were, taking it to the front desk. And then later on, when you check into your next hotel, your bags are there waiting for you. And then you just have to wait. The only thing that caused some issues when our room wasn't ready was that they won't give you your bags until you get into a room. So if you need something, if there's medication or anything else that's really important to you, I would say bring that with you to the parks or keep it in a backpack or something like that, because it's kind of a pain to try to get your bags if you're waiting for your room. Once you get into your room, you just call the front desk and they brought our stuff within like 3 minutes.
Oh, that's good, because sometimes I've had to wait for them to bring the bags, like sometimes 30 minutes. I'm like, are the bags coming? I'm trying to get to dinner or something. So yeah, to really plan accordingly.
I think they felt bad since we were delayed, but yeah, if there's something, if you have some kind of like time sensitive medication or something for your kids, or like glasses and sunglasses or something like that, like bring the stuff that you need, that you think you're going to need in your backpack or whatever, and try to just keep your clothes and like the stuff you don't need instantly in your luggage. Always take a backpack to Magic Kingdom anyways, or to any of those parks. You always
totally. Well, that wraps it up. Do you have anything else to add about getting around?
Gosh, I don't know. I'm just excited.
Yes.
I'm excited to start doing the show. And I think my co-host from our old podcast, the Add More Mouse podcast, is going to come on for the back end of some of these episodes. Probably not this one, but we're going to do some, look, the way Michael and I always looked at this was there are a lot of Disney podcasts out there. And so we just try to have fun with the things we discover. Neither of us is necessarily a premier Disney expert, but we know more than the average bear. And I get really into some of the old movies that influence the parks. We did a whole series on our other podcast about the various sitcoms that visited Disney parks and watched all those episodes. We just love stuff like that. So more to come on that, and then we can tie it into your topics for the episode. We will, and if we can't, we'll just fall down our own rabbit holes. And
it sounds awesome. Let's get weird.
Let's get weird.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
All right.
Talk soon.
Bye, Leah.